Hello, everyone. My name is Tina from Quantum Healing with Tina. I'm a BQH practitioner, spirit releasement therapist, and intuitive empath, if you haven't been here before. And today we're here with Karen. You want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. You'll know who I am.
And our beautiful, beautiful friend, Amanda, who came to us a little while ago for some help clearing and healing some things in her life. She had an RSR session and a Beyond Quantum Healing session recently. Hi, Amanda.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me on your show.
The Tina and Karen show. Yeah. So Amanda was going to write us a review, and I said, well, why don't you just come on and we'll talk about everything, because you really had an amazing session and lots to talk about, and you kind of like really took things into your own hands, which I thought was amazing. And yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about like where you were at, like when you came to us? Like what you wanted to clear and heal?
Yes. So originally I reached out to you because I was getting, like in general, because I also do energy type work, I'm able to keep a pretty secure space in my home. My own energy field feels really secure. And then, am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it all the time. Don't worry about it.
All I could say, like the best way that I could put it is the fuckery increased, where particularly in my sleep, I was just getting like harassed. Just, and you know what, I'm able normally to keep my actual bedroom very secure. And it was just like there were a couple weeks in a row where it felt like I was getting bombarded by dreams that were really disruptive, getting woken up, feeling exhausted in the morning. And then I had a friend recommend the two of you. Like she put out like a public recommendation. And I was like, maybe I'll look into them and just see. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. Then once I was starting to work with you and speak with you, we had our first, like initial call. I felt like, oh, okay, because I am starting to take further steps just on my own path with helping to other people, support other people. I'm like, oh, I feel like there's even more that I could get into, which would clear out more space for me to more effectively support other people. So it just kind of unwound from there and continues to. I feel like there's more work that I can do with you that would be really helpful. And then I'd be able to pay it forward too. But initially it was just like these couple weeks of, I just felt like I was being bombarded.
Yeah, that's a really common feeling lately, like right now, that a lot of people are feeling that, because with the energies ramping up. And that's why we put out like the most recent videos of like just trying to help people like with their nighttime routines and protection and things like that, because it can be a lot, especially at nighttime, because we're so vulnerable. Right.
Yeah, not in itself, before we even had the RSR session together. So just from reading your website, having the call with you, and then I don't remember, it was like a week later, maybe we had the RSR session. I immediately started implementing your sovereignty checks and morning and evening routine, kind of mixed in with some of my own tools, but like just even hearing you talk about it, something clicked, because I can slack on that kind of stuff a little bit. I mean, I check in with myself every day in a way, but I wasn't doing intentional, really checking what was in my field and really checking what was in my house, like once a week. So to implement it right before bed has been really helpful, and then in the morning. And so I started that even prior to our session. And I think by the time we got to the RSR session, I was already feeling better. Just
Wow.
now. So I highly recommend that for people that are watching this and maybe haven't watched a couple of your previous videos. I think your last two that you did both have a lot of information about energetic tools that you can use to clear yourself and protect yourself and all that. Karen's stuff is very thorough.
Oh, you watched that.
I did. I was watching it while I was doing this morning. I was like, man, Karen does not mess around.
No. I take it very, very seriously, just as you take your work and the homework that we've given you very seriously. And that's why me too, I felt it was just like really important to have you on, because we have to, like, you're like the model student, client, teacher, all around. And it's like people need to know that you have to do work. You have to do the work. You have to commit to yourself. You have to say yes to having to see the hard things, facing it, and being honest with yourself all the way through and through. And so it's just like, watching your transformation just from the beginning, like the first call to where we are today. It's so exciting just to see your just what everything is coming out, just all your little stories, your little breakthroughs, like just things, even physical manifestations that are, it gives me like, I get really excited because it's just like, God, people, like, this is what you got to do. Like, you have to commit. And it's like, they just want an easy fix. We're here. Yes, we've done the work, and we're trying to bridge people over. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a nudge, even though like you're so self-sufficient. It's just, maybe you just need a little bit, because we're here for that reason, to connect and to walk each other home, right? And it's like, yeah, taking that seriously, it really bugs me when it's just like they just want to come and then they don't do it. It's just like, God, there's just so much potential waiting for you on the other side. And there's just like maybe just a little thing that could just be stopping them from going the whole way through. But yeah, I was just like really pleased and happy. Like, we saw it in you anyway from the first time we talked. I'm like, she's fucking ready. Like, she's going for it. And it's just like, that gives us more incentive for us to commit even more to you, like, and give our complete selves so that you can give your complete self too. So we all heal each other through it. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that. Thank you. I'm so excited
for that. Yeah, I feel like I've been feeling for a while that the time of like the guru is over and the leader is over and it's just done. Like, it's just done. It might still be happening, but that's just the residuals of it being that way for so long, where we're just really looking to any outside thing. And I know you guys have experienced too, and I'm going the same thing, even when it comes to non-embodied beings that are helpful, guides and guardians and ancestors and all that. Even the time of relying on them, it's like, we got to like step it up, And so what I appreciate about working with you guys is like, I do take responsibility, and sometimes we all need that extra support, and so to have support from the two of you, to also realize that if I look at it not as like Tena and Karen are going to save me, I look at it as like, you guys are like my water wings, right? Like I'm in the water and I'm swimming and everything, but sometimes you get a little tired, and it feels like teamwork. Working with the two of you really feels like teamwork. And I feel like we get so much more done when I'm not just like, okay, throwing it all on you and expecting you to make me feel better.
No, we all have our own parts in it. We all have to like take our oars and just row together. Like, it doesn't matter what. We're here for that, exactly that. I agree.
Yeah. And I feel like committing to following your recommendations, like listening to the BQH recordings over and over again. And the RSR I listened to, I think 3 times in total, and I might again.
Wow.
So, oh my God, I need to give you some stars.
I
know. Okay, so for me, when I do major energy work, whether it's on myself or through another support, then my physical body needs to go through that integrate, or does, or has so far. Maybe the process is going to get more efficient, but I might be extra tired. I might be emotional. I might have digestive issues. I might have, okay, this is TMI, but like really bad BO, because your body's like releasing all this stuff. And so I have all these tools before, which is like journaling and salt baths and napping and all these things, which are great. But what I'm finding is with your recordings, listening over and over again actually eases that into that physical integration and seems to speed it up. And I felt that a lot, and whether or not I'm fully paying attention. So the first time I listen to a recording after a session, I'm picking up things that maybe I missed in the session.
Yes, girl.
Maybe even the second time I might ping on a couple of things where I was like, oh, I didn't catch that. By the third time, I've pretty much auditorially got it all in, but it's still energetically working on me and helping the process.
Mm-hmm.
So do it, Karen, say.
God, I love
I
it.
wish we could just like hug you right now.
I know. Oh, me too.
Because you know why? Because when you follow the recommendations, the results are that much more. Like that's
Yeah,
the
you
thing.
keep getting healing through it, you know, even if you play your recording and it's on mute, you're still
Right.
getting the
The
energy,
energy.
the healing, whatever it is, like the integration, the body, the cells are listening. It's just everything is listening.
Yeah. And the
God, you're the best.
You're the best.
You're the best.
The proof for me is always in what happens in the physical, what happens in the 3D realm. And for me, just the fact that my physical body is responding to listening to it again. So maybe I was feeling really drained and I listened to it again and all of a sudden my energy picks up. To me, that's actually like measurable, I guess you could say proof. Or, you know, is this a good time to talk about the physical?
Yeah, do it. Let's go, girl. It's your show.
Okay. It's my show.
Yeah.
It's my show.
Yeah, it's your show.
It's so not my show.
Your testimonial.
I'm sitting on the couch in your like studio.
I'm in my bedroom.
Yes.
That's where Karen, that's Karen's work office in her bed.
Yeah. My pillows.
Bubble.
Yeah. Tell us about your physical stuff. Like, how about that? Like,
So
that's pretty solid, you know, people need that too, you know, that's pretty big proof.
Yeah. So, and you guys already know this, so it's really sharing like for anybody who's going to watch us in the future, is after the RSR session, or maybe it was even prior to that, I started to see like, oh, a BQH session will help clear some more of the like original, you could say, trauma points that create these little hooks that, and I call them access points, where some of these things can get stuck in our physical bodies, in our energy fields and all that. So yeah, you can clear away a lot of the fuckery, you know, which and immediately feel a result. But sometimes the deeper stuff, you really have to access the origin of that trauma.
Yes.
So that's why I particularly wanted to do the BQH, is to go deeper on a couple of things. And so if people aren't familiar with that kind of work, it's like, what are my major triggers still emotionally? What are the things that cause a lot of thought looping, like a repeated theme in my life?
Patterns.
Yeah, patterns, you know, because sometimes just clear, like in the RSR, just clearing out thought forms that are gathering, those are just gone. But are there specific patterns that have been playing out over years and years and years? In some of my most close relationships is where you see a lot of it, right? So how do we actually get to the origin point of those so that they are permanently cleared out of my body, out of my field? That's why I wanted BQH. So in between the RSR and the BQH, you guys asked me to compile a list of things that I want to address, like 10 or 12 questions. So over the week, I'm like writing things down and like, okay, I get triggered about my dad or whatever, you know, I'm writing this whole list. And one of my questions, I make a short list of physical things that I would like to address if possible. And I've had a chronic Tena versicolor rash. It's like a candida related type rash that had been on my back for a really long time, but had migrated down more onto my upper thighs and bikini line area. And it's something that I've lived with since 2013. I've gotten rid of it with physical means before, but then it always comes back. And so I wrote that on the list, right, of something that we could look into. And then I write that I have this reoccurring abdominal pain, pretty severe, sometimes pretty debilitating, that has no medical reason. And that's been happening since 2015, which coincided with when I started doing energy work. Did we lose Karen?
We lost Karen.
Oh, what should we do?
I'm gonna pause. We're back.
So I was talking about the list of questions that I was compiling prior to the BQH session for things that I felt like were priorities to be addressed. And you guys, as per your recommendation, I was putting like the highest priorities at the top, which were a lot more like emotional type triggers that I go through. And somewhere down the list were these physical symptoms, the tinea versicolor rash, the reoccurring abdominal pain that had been occurring since I started doing energy work back in 2015, off and on. So then as the week progressed and we were getting closer to the BQH session, out of the blue, I get the abdominal pain. It wakes me up in the middle of the night, 2 nights before the session, and I hadn't had it in months. And it was pretty intense, like to wake me up. So I'm like, So when we have our pre-talk, I'm like, guys, maybe we need to talk about this because I was feeling it. I was in pain. And then on top of that, the tinea versicolor that was down on my thighs and near my bikini line got bigger, redder. And by the night before the BQH session, it was like raised up off of my skin, which it's never done before. And so even though my intention was to address all these other things that have been around since childhood, my body was actually telling me what the priority was, which is like, I'm like filing this away for all future use. Because I feel like I've been able to intellectually understand over the years about energy work and how all disease in the body centers around, it has an energetic origin. But this is like, now I have like embodied proof.
Yes.
Because so we have the session, and the night after, I develop a rash on top of my rash. Like and it's really uncomfortable. It's more a blistery, like poison oak type of rash, but quite literally just in the outline of where the tinea versicolor already was. And it was super itchy. And I wake up the next morning with really strange scratches, but I tried to kind of duplicate those with my nails. I keep my nails super short. So I'm like, where did these scratches come from? So long story short, it got worse for 2 days. And then it just started getting better. And now I'm only 8 or 9 days out from my BQH session. And this chronic rash is 95% gone.
Wow.
Just gone.
That's so amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Even on your back too?
On my back, it's fading. I had a few spots on my chest. I had a spot in my elbow here that's totally gone. It's fading everywhere. And where it was the most intense, and like I've told you guys prior to this, I'm like, I can't wear a swimsuit this whole summer because it was like 4 or 5 inches down my thighs was just this red, gross looking mark on both sides of my legs. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to wear long shorts to go swimming. And it is gone.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I have had it before fade slowly over time, like maybe 3 weeks. it'll slowly start to fade for whatever reason. I don't know, because it's been like these cycles. But I have never had it disappear this quickly and like this profoundly, from it being so bad, irritating, itchy, raised, gross, to nothing. I can put a swimsuit on. So that
That's
to me is like a
amazing.
huge, yeah, it's like a measurable thing. And I'm so happy that I listened to my body and we prioritize that, because, and the abdominal pain as well. So I ended up expressing to the two of you as we went into the BQH session, like, I think we actually need to prioritize the physical stuff, and just heading down that pathway of these two major physical issues actually unwound so many other things that I had been dealing with. So to me, it's like the wisdom of our bodies, that our bodies are like, hey, 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 you know? And I
Yeah.
never forget this lesson,
Right.
because so with the abdominal pain, I think it was 2 days after our session, I felt it start to come on again. But rather than me having the mentality of like, oh, well, the BQH didn't work, what I did is I did my morning clearing and check-in, and I asked to be shown what was going on. And I was shown very clearly what was going on, that something we removed during the session had uncovered a deeper layer. And then I did the work on myself, and it hasn't come back since.
Woohoo!
That is why I wanted to like have you on to talk, because that is so amazing, because you're so in tune with your body. I think that's really why you've been able to have such big results, because you're listening to your body, right? Where other
Yeah.
people might just like kind of blow these things off, like you're paying
Yeah.
attention. Okay, this is ramping up like before my session, so maybe we need to look more deeply at this instead of it being on the bottom of the list. Let's move it up to the top and see what's going on here. And that ends up being, like you said, unraveling all of the other things.
Yeah, it
Right?
ties in everything
It ties
together.
in it literally tied in everything, like everything. And then after your session, when you're like, oh wow, this pain's still here, like you said, instead of just being like, oh my God, this didn't work, you actually took it upon yourself to ask the questions, because your body knows, your higher self knows, and you're so in tune, like you can easily kind of do a session on yourself, right?
Pretty
and
much.
and ask the questions. So we did remove like that big wiry
AI ball
implant.
or whatever it
It was like
was.
a big implant, all wired and tangled together. It took the three of us and some outside help to kind of get that out of there, and then that uncovered that deeper whatever was going on in there. What did you find in there? What was it?
So what I found was a defunct device that was that whole mass that looked like I would say looked like a square, maybe about that big, but a perfect square. It looked like aluminum or something, like a thin metal square. But then I could see that what this attempt was, which had to do, I think, with the scratches and all the weirdness, this violent dream that came,
Right.
was, I think, the attempt to, since a lot of access to my field was cut off by removing that tangled older device. They're like, okay, well, let's try this other piece of equipment that's already in here. And then it had nodes elsewhere in my body, little nodes that they were trying to connect like wirelessly. So it was using like old technology with new technology. But what they needed was to traumatize me for that, like whoop.
In your
Yeah, so you
dream.
could get out. Yeah.
They needed some kind of split, which has always worked on me as a kid, because I would get terrorized in my sleep. It would cause these splits. And that's why I think they had so many different layers of access to me.
Wow. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so it's so funny, like tuning into my higher self too. It's interesting because tuning into my could even say higher self, source self, I feel like I'm able to get out of the emotion, which, some of the higher frequency guides are like that. It's not cold, it's just not super wrapped up in emotion. So it's able to be very, so I'm asking questions to my higher, detached, but lovingly. But I realize that my inner self, especially around this stuff, we're not fucking around, right? This is causing me physical pain. So I'm sitting there in my self session and I'm like, what is this? Can it be removed? Then I'm shown an attempt was made to connect this technology. So I'm like, was the attempt successful? I just hear attempt failed. And I'm like, yes. And I ask how, then I follow the instructions, the visualizations. Then once it's done, I ask, was it successfully removed? It's like removal successful, which sounds kind of weird and robotic, but it's not. It's just like, no bullshit.
Right.
We know you got to get on with your day. You got dogs to feed and nephews to play with, and you have to live a human life. So we're just going to.
Yeah.
And to me, that's awesome.
Yeah, you could see how powerful you are. Again, like just reinforcing that I got all the tools that I need to do what I need to do. Again, yeah, I love that when you can empower yourself. That's our whole practice, is wanting to have people learn how to empower themselves. So they don't rely on anyone outside of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be honest with yourself as to where you're at too. So let's say somebody has a session with you and they are just starting to familiarize themselves with energy work, how it works. And so that, let's say something similar were to happen where they have a session and then they have what would seem like a recurring symptom come back up or what. So maybe if they don't know how to remove the device themselves yet, because they just haven't practiced, and this is new for a lot of people, but just knowing that they're empowered to sit and ask the question will get an answer, and that they trust themselves. And then they could even try removing it if they're in that level of trust and they want to try. And if not, then they can reach back out to you and ask for assistance. But that's just like, wherever you're at, just know that it always comes back to you and your own responsibility and your own empowerment, because there's a whole level of reality where we don't need anything else, just ourselves. And yet we're still learning, like at the same time, both of those things exist for me personally,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I hear like other energy worker type people talk about, you don't need any of it. You don't need healing. You're perfect the way you are. And I'm like, that is absolutely one thread of reality. And if I got a rash going halfway down my legs and I'm being emotionally triggered and I have a debilitating pain, then I'm not quite stepping. Like I can realize I don't need anything about outside of me, but that's not the frequency I'm dwelling in all the time. So then I'm going to go back and look at all the other stages where I and go, okay, well, here's where I'm at right now. And I know this exists at the same time.
I love that.
Yes.
It's a beautiful way to explain it. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about like the splitting? Because that dream that you had really solidified for me the way that these dark entities can work in our dream time to really spark these violent dreams, these traumatizing dreams. To then, because as a child they would split us off, like you said, like the dissociated split. So our personality will split into different aspects. So then we're carrying all these different energies, and then they have all these different access points into us, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think as I'm starting to understand it more and be able to look back over the course of my life of how things have unfolded in that way, it seems to me as if what I experience is that if I'm not fully in my body, and I mean, when I say that, I know the word embodiment has become kind of trendy. For me, that means actual sensation, like I'm aware of the entirety of my physical form, even whilst I'm doing other things. So when I'm fully embodied, no other entity can occupy this vehicle. Like I'm driving the vehicle. And so in order, I think as a child, to get me to leave my body, because I only recently came back into my body, like in the last 2 years, and it's been sort of gradual, and it'll probably still continue, I'll still catch myself totally out because I like to spin out in my head. But I'm learning how to actually now process in my head and still be in my body at the same time, but it's a learning process. So as a child, we're so vulnerable when we sleep, like you guys brought up in one of your last videos. And so these reoccurring, horribly traumatic dreams are ways that I would jump out of body. It's like it's programmed in the dream. And so then I do it in real life too, or not real life, but waking life, moving around, learn how to boop. It's a survival tactic. So I can't blame my little self for wanting to do that when it's too scary to be in your own body, but it also then, as soon as you're out, who can come in? Can they access your channel? Can they access information as a small, very psychic, very open being?
Right.
What energy can they siphon? What information can they gain?
Right.
Little kids can be used for remote viewing so easily because it's just natural for them.
Right.
So to me, it's like having this happen consistently at night in my dreams, which also then you're not getting the restorative physically restorative sleep that you need. So what does that leave you vulnerable to?
Right.
In your
even more, like you're fatigued. So you're like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some key points in my life where I remember and when we're talking traumatizing nightmares, I'm not just saying like, oh, I was scared in my sleep. I'm saying like I was known as like a screamer. My parents come rush because I would just like scream. It would shake the house like as a little kid, and it would freak everybody out. Like if I went and spent the night at someone else's house and it happened, people were like, what is wrong with her? Like intense screaming, like shaking terror in my own bed, like physically shaking, not being able to sleep because of fear, being really highly anxious, like mind starting, seeing things with my eyes open, like being awake and still seeing things in my room. And then it affecting my day. Not able to concentrate at school. Like I got really good grades, but I probably could have been diagnosed with like ADHD in some ways, which is weird because I'm also kind of low energy, but attention wise, my attention was.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So we're not just talking about like, oh, I was a little scared. Like it's actually ability.
Terror.
Yeah. Terror. Yeah.
Terror. Yeah.
It's psychological torture, really.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Psychological torture. And so why would they want to do something like this? Like psychologically torture a child?
I think it depends on what entities are trying to gain access to you. But for one, energy siphoning, which I think, Karen, you brought up too, even how I used to have, this is a lot of information, but so is everything else I've shared. Into adulthood, like up until maybe just 2 years ago, I would have weird sexual dreams.
Oh my God, me too.
For the record, I don't think to this day, I don't believe I've ever had a vivid sexual dream with someone that I'm in a loving relationship with or someone that I'm even attracted to. It's like it would come to in these dreams and be in all these different sexual situations with people that I'm like horrendously like repulsed by, but I'm still engaging in it in my dream. Or it's like random people that I know in my life, but I'm not attracted to at all.
My God, yeah, that's been happening lately.
Yeah, and you can think like, oh, well, it's just normal, our brain, you can take the total 3D, like, well, it's just the psychology of your brain is what, but why has it gone away now that I do all these clearing things? I haven't had one.
Right.
really long time. Like, how was it so frequent
Yeah.
and kind of traumatizing, because I'd wake up like, ugh, bleh.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like energy. I consider that more like energy siphoning.
Yeah.
Whereas some
Yeah.
other things, the access to terror, creating all these sub personalities makes you a more usable tool for specific agendas when it comes to I mean, I don't even think we want to go into the whole SSP thing because that's a whole rabbit hole. But like people who are born with like super open channels are more easily used if they're traumatized.
Yeah. Because I could
Right.
see it. The way I see it is that they traumatize you, and that's the point to which you start to leave, and the other subpersonality comes through. But there's a point in between there where they can come in, like
Yeah.
before you switch into the subpersonality coming forward. Yeah, there's like an open door right there. So it's like a half second where you check out, and then the new one comes in, and they come in at that point.
Right. So speaking of SSP, I don't know how comfortable you are talking about it, but you've had a lot of weird experiences. So like in your dream state, right? With like things like that. And wasn't that implant like related to something?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you know, I kind of, because I'm still in the process of uncovering a lot of this stuff, I can't really speak for
Right.
what SSP is. I can only talk about the experiences I've had,
Right.
which have coincided with other people that I know having shared experiences too,
Mm-hmm.
that are pretty specific. Like I have received in an SSP type dream, I have received someone's code name and then relayed that to them in real time and being like, there is no way you could know that. I mean, like weird coincidences and things like that.
Right.
What I still don't understand is I just don't fully understand it.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Just
really complicated. Or
days
yeah,
that I
there's a lot to uncover.
experiences that I have, and then later I find out other people report similar things.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just another form of psychological fuckery, or was I actually being used for SSP type things as a kid and in adult and like still sometimes? That I don't really know. And I don't feel like I'm at the point where I'm really comfortable just like trying to theorize all of that and weave it into. I will just say that I've had a lot of corroborated experiences. And I know other people who have had experiences that they actually fully remember being awake.
Mm.
So sometimes when I have a dream that feels because it all has this same residual feeling to it. I
Yeah.
might have a dream that's not traumatizing and does not seem overtly SSP related, but it has a feeling. And if I go and ask some of these people that I know, like, hey, have you ever heard of an island that you no, and I'll describe things, they're like, yep, that's a sex trafficking island off of blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of weird things like that.
Oh, wow. As you were saying that, I was making a connection from another SSP client and this island. But we can talk about that later. That was
Yeah,
really
they're
interesting.
like pleasure islands, which is so weird when all the Epstein stuff came out. I'm like, because a lot of these are like, and
Yeah.
actually there's some tie there. It's so funny how movies have all these gross, weird little tells, and like the island in the old school Pinocchio was kind of,
Mm-hmm.
when a lot of those old school cabal type energies were starting to reveal.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing where it's all the lost, but it's all the like that island in Pinocchio is like
That's where
those.
all the Lost Boys or whatever they go or something.
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah.
hell.
Well, that's a
Something
weird
like that.
story in itself, the Pinocchio thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of me.
Yeah.
So many rabbit holes.
I
Yeah, so
know.
many. Like, which one are we gonna pick? But yeah, it was interesting, Amanda, like when you had emailed us about that whole like access denied type trauma in your sleep, because it happened to me the day after, where I was waking up and as if I was waking up in the middle of them trying to scare me. Because I felt like the fear in my body rising, and I recognized it because I'm like, whoa, that's a fear, like that's fear right there, like come that's in my body. But I was like, no, 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 no. So I said, like, I was saying no, and it stopped. So it was kind of like that own access denied type thing too. But yeah, I was feeling that. I was just like, oh, that's weird. I don't know what that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like too in the last 8 or 9 months, a lot of these things that happen in dreams, they feel like tests. Like they're testing where I'm at because I've learned how to defend myself. How to defend
Yeah.
myself in the liminal state, which actually isn't really cognitive, it just comes out. So if something
Yes.
comes into my bedroom and when I'm in the liminal state, so I'm halfway conscious, I like sometimes this very, which another BQH session might be able to reveal what it is, but I speak some, it's not a light language, it's not a star language, it is an ancient earth language. And I start like, and I put my hand up and shit will just, they're gone. Whatever is trying to creep up on me will just go. And this deep voice comes out of me, this
Wow.
deep growly
Wow.
male voice. And even though I don't know what I'm saying, I know I'm saying, oh,
Get the
hell
fuck
no.
out of here.
Like, you know who I am kind of thing.
Maybe that's the warrior woman.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. That's a whole other mystery. So that's like in the liminal state, I have that kind of defense that's come up as some of this stuff is cleared away. But then in the dream state, I think sometimes removing some of the devices and implants, now I'm just not traumatized by the dreams that are supposed to be traumatizing. So they've tried a couple different approaches in the last, I think since my RSR session, they've tried an emotionally traumatizing approach, where I had a very vivid dream about somebody that I really care about in a situation that normally I would have woken up feeling sick, like hurt. Then I was like, I don't care. And then it's really the night after the BQH session, or 2 nights later, when the scratches happened, it was like out of the blue, I'm witnessing a horrific like murder scene, very detailed, of the man doing the killing a bunch of women naked, and just like blood flying everywhere. Like I won't get into it to traumatize your viewers, but it was intensely violent. And I woke up like, like it did.
I love that.
So maybe
Good.
the removal of those implants, maybe those implants were like triggering that big response.
The body response, yeah.
Yeah, like some kind of nervous system response, or I don't know, because I do get that what you're talking about, Karen. Like sometimes in your sleep, it's almost like the fear response of your nervous system will be you up, and your heart's pounding.
Yeah.
You know,
I felt it was like right, like it was going up my body. So it was, let's say, midway up, and I was just like, oh no, 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 no. Because like even sometimes in dreams, like if my consciousness comes in, I wake myself up. I'm like, wake up, you have to wake up. And I get out of it.
Yeah.
It's very
So all of
fascinating.
these things, slowly over time, it's like the more I clear out, the more empowered I feel. Even the attempts to fuck with me are not successful or as successful.
That's great.
So, and that's even ramped up since the RSR and the BQH.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
And I just want to say too, like, although you've learned a lot from us, like, I feel like we've learned a lot from you too.
Totally.
Because you're so incredibly self-aware. So to have someone to kind of connect with who's so incredibly self-aware, like it's made a lot of connections for us too. So I just want to say that,
I feel that way too with you guys. And I really appreciate that in general, when I realized like instead of us putting different there's like one person on a pedestal who's the guru or the teacher, it's more like
No, we're all together. We're like sisters, you know?
and when we each tap into our center thing, then it's almost like our circuits can connect and it makes more, it's almost like a neural pattern outside of it. I call it mycelium. It's like this amazing human mycelium where we're interconnected and we all learn from each other simultaneously. It's like everyone has something to contribute.
Absolutely.
Rather than everybody trying to haul up someone else. You know what I mean? It's just like
no, it's not like no one's a dead weight here. Everyone's
it feels
doing
very,
their own.
Yeah. It's like very equal, it feels very equal.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. With you guys too, I feel like this is kind of how I'm wired too, where many things I've been filing away for a while. And it's like I would ping on them, they would draw my interest, podcasts or movies or something I hear or something I read or something that comes directly from a guide or from my inner self. And it's like file them away. Because at the time I'm not ready to use them or whatever. But then with you two, the way that you both work, the way that you work as facilitators, and even just in conversation, like right now, I notice now I'm able to pull out these things that I've been storing that are valuable tools or valuable connections to make and add them to the overall toolbox that I work with. Like, oh, that's great. Right. That wasn't important back then, but Tena just brought that back. And then Karen, so I don't know. I just really appreciate that too.
I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. Do you want to talk a little bit about your actual BQH session? Because I thought it was really beautiful and really interesting.
Sure.
It was profound.
What aspect of it would you think?
Well, I thought, you were it was set in the Middle East. And I thought what I thought was really interesting is you were part of this temple that felt actually really familiar to Karen and I, like we had been there before. And you experienced this life. I don't remember specific details because like I haven't listened back to your session yet, but and I'm kind of like in trance with you guys. So if you like can remember like a little bit about your life there and the happenings and like the relationship with Joseph and it was kind of like a mystery school that you were going to, right, at the temple. Anything you feel like sharing.
Sure. And I think even before getting into the details of the life, I think just for anybody who hasn't had a BQH session, and also I think this just speaks to both of your abilities to hold that support as facilitators. Because I had one session a few years ago that was like a past life regression. I was kind of familiar with how the process works. But leading into that life, for any of those of, people watching that haven't ever been quote unquote hypnotized, I think there's got to be a better name for it, but
I know.
put into a more peaceful mind state so that you're not really thinking or emoting too much. You're able to just access information that's not easily accessed just in our normal everyday waking state. We can put it that way. That's a long way to put it. But so the first image that came through was actually just quick flashes of imagery. And it was like male feet in sandals in sand, desert and sand.
Oh, that's right. That's
sort of this like pan up this man's body, and he's wearing like a long sort of like shift kind of garment. And the whole like groin area of his garment is really bloody.
Oh yeah.
And so that might sound horrible for someone who is listening to this video, right, or watching this video, like, oh my God, why would I want to do that? But you're so supported in the space that you're able to see things and remain somewhat detached. And then Tena, so basically, long story short, the next thing I saw was I looked down at what was my own body, which was it was a little like fuzzy, like I felt kind of out of it in that consciousness of that life. And I looked down and I could feel that I was a woman, and I was in a long dress, and I was also bloody in the groin area. So that's like a very intense image to come into. So then what Tina did is, because it could have been too intense, she was able to gently sort of like, okay, we're going to rewind and go back. Also, because I think that was such an intense moment to come into that I wasn't able to glean a lot of clear information, because my Amanda brain is kind of like, what are we seeing? What is this?
Right.
So Tina it was like, let's go back before this incident. And then I was able to clearly see myself, see details. It's not emotionally triggering.
It's not traumatizing.
Yeah, it's gentle. So just for people who aren't familiar with BQH, if anything starts to get too intense, Tina senses that and instantly is able to remind you, it's just by saying, you don't need to feel the emotion to witness this. Your body just goes whoop and you don't feel it.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
hear ya.
good.
That happened too to my first session with her too. It was so intense that she was just like, remember, you could touch or like just observe it, and my body sensations, because I was shaking really hard, and it just stopped because I became an observer instead.
Yes.
So
So I
yeah,
want
totally.
to make that very clear for people who might be considering this work, is that it does not have to be re-traumatizing in any way, because as facilitators and in the tandem session, Karen's like your tag team partner, and Tina's sort of writing the whole thing too. So it's really Tina that's bringing you through the process. So if you start to ramp up, she's able to just, and it's so gentle, and you just fall back into, then I was able to pick up on the beauty and the joy of this part of this life. And then by the time we get back up to that more traumatizing part of it, I was way more of a detached observer and just able to see what I saw, and I was not having any kind of trauma response in my body. So I think that's important for people to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And also what I find is also for people to know too, is because you've done so much work that you were ready to see shit like that. You know,
Yeah.
you're never not going to see anything that you're not supposed to see or not ready to see. So, I mean, by you starting, you're landing with 2 bloody crotches, you're just like, yeah, she's so ready for that. Like she could see it,
Right.
there's a point to this,
Right.
So yeah,
That's those
as a
are
disclaimer.
yeah.
No, go
Really
ahead, Tina.
important. Those are both really important points to make. One, you're never going to get anything you're not ready for. And two, you can always step back and watch as an observer. You don't need to be in that body and be re-traumatized by whatever's happening. So thank you both for stating that, because, we do work with a lot of clients that come to heal trauma. So a lot of our clients do see traumatizing scenarios, but not always. Like our client the other day, I mean, it was his session was different than yours because he was in a different place in his growth, so everybody's in a different place and everybody's going to get exactly what is meant for them and exactly what they're capable of handling. And like Karen said, because you've done so much work, you're capable of handling that. Like we saw you in your RSR as like Xena the warrior princess, like, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. I just wanted to set that disclaimer. Xena the warrior princess here.
And I think that's what my higher/source self kind of goes balls to the wall anyway, because the very first past life regression I ever had, it's like this beautiful, gentle, amazing, meditation to get you to that point. And when I come into the life, I'm dead. And the lady's like, and I'm just like, but no, I'm just dead, floating in the ocean. She's like, I'm gonna pull you back now. Like I came into a death immediately. And this is before I was even an energy worker at all. So I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm afraid of the ocean. That makes sense.
Oh my God. Wow. I didn't know that.
Oh boy.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Your higher self is pretty intense, Amanda.
Yeah, no doubt. No wonder I've been kind of like, la, la, la. I'm just getting
Warrior.
to know I can handle it.
I could see the warrior saying, show her the hard stuff, just show her.
Sure. She's good. She's good.
She can take it.
That's so funny. Okay, so go ahead, continue on. Tell us
Okay,
about.
Yeah,
so
so we
I think
rewind you back.
the key points of this life, which some of the key points weren't even apparent until after the session. It's like I witnessed the life and recorded all this information. And then I went and did a little research because that's always really cool. And then also in the coming days, as I listened to the recording, more information came in. So, which is also really cool that it just continues to roll.
Yeah.
And, but the gist of this life is that I was a young woman born in Jerusalem, and this would have been pre-Jesus. And I was born very tuned in to spirit, like very open, seer type abilities. I don't know exactly. We didn't exactly go into exactly what my abilities were, but I was recognized by my father that there were a lot of those types of abilities. So at a very young age, I think it was age 6, I was put into a temple for specific training. And this would be a temple in Jerusalem, where at this point in time, there were still, I guess for lack of a better word, we can call them priests and priestesses, because what we tapped into in this life was this tipping point, kind of like a, what do you want to call it? Like a crux of when the Abrahamic religions, things like that, were getting corrupted.
What was the word that came up? Nadir?
Nadir. So this might be interesting for some of the people watching, in that all these words started to come up, and I re-listened to the recording and wrote them all down, and then started to look at them, and they all were in Arabic. So what was interesting about that is, even as I'm Googling it, like the next day, I'm like, if I am a Jewish young woman born in Jerusalem, why are all the names coming up and these words that I'm saying in Arabic? So then good old Dr. Google shows me that, like, actually that was a thing, that a lot of Jewish people at that time would have used Hebrew for ceremonial purposes, but their everyday language would have been Arabic. Because my brain was like, well, this is bullshit then, because but also, like, it was like very consistent that the names coming up, even the name of my father, which came up 2 or 3 days later, it was Ibrahim. It was the Arabic version of Abraham. So I'm like, okay, but the word Nadir, so I'm describing that I live in this city, and I'm like, it feels like Jerusalem. And then I say, Nadir, the word Nadir is coming up. And Tina asked, is that a person or a place? And I said, feels like a place. So then doing the research after, Nadir, also Arabic in origin, means opposite. So I say Jerusalem and then I say opposite. It also can mean the lowest point. So if the zenith is the highest point above a celestial body, then Nadir is the lowest point. So then this sort of starts to unfold, that I was maybe saying a couple different things even. So there's the possibility that I was acknowledging that this formerly holy place of Jerusalem was being corrupt. It had become the opposite, as like a stronghold for these darker energies that were taking over at that time. Also, that our temple, which was underground basically, was like a beautiful opposite to the zenith. So I was kind of talking about things. So that was one kind of interesting aspect of it.
Yeah.
Long story short, I am trained from age 6 to age 17 in a temple in Jerusalem, where there's 2 things going on. There's the original old ways, which are actually a lot more in tune with Mother Earth and divine feminine energies. That's being infiltrated through, you could call it like demonic possession of humans who are high up in charge. So a lot of but it's still not blatant crushing of the old ways. It's like slow takeover, slow clamping down on these old ways, which were really centered around direct connection to source.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was about. So then at age 17, I'm transferred to a small village where on the outskirts of the small village, hidden, the real work of in the old ways with these temple priestesses who were working with divine conception. So they were working to be able to conceive children without having sex, basically.
Mm-hmm.
A way of just like literal direct connection. And it, it led to this whole, I mean, how deep do we want to go into this life? Basically, I was one of these priestesses. And in the 2 years that I was working in this underground temple, also this has to do with water, because the actual point of conception had to do with water alchemy at the same time. There's like this water source in this underground temple. You could call it a lagoon or something like that. So I was being prepared for 2 years to do this ritual. In the meantime, I meet a local man who helps as a caregiver for this temple, because they really have to do things on the DL at this point. And his mother was of the same lineage that had been trained in these old ways. So he grew up in this older version of this, we call it a religion, but really, I mean, form of spirituality. So we fall in love. And I'm getting all this information about how, because we're at this turning point where patriarchal takeover, suppression of the divine feminine, which, it also means a suppression of your direct line to source. I saw that we could actually do both, divinely bring in the spirit of a child and physically conceive the child. So we start to train together to do this. And we're in the long run, we're successful. But I also get kicked out of the temple for doing it because I go against their old ways. So it felt like a very similar energy to what's going on now, where you're at this breaking point, right? And there's all this, like, there are people who could pick up on, there's new things coming in. Yes, these old ways have laid this foundation, but we have to welcome in the new because it's changing. Everything's changing. The old ways aren't going to hold up if we don't evolve. And that's both being recognized and honored and squashed all at the same time. So I end up pregnant, and it ends up costing me my life and the life of my husband when we found out. So it was actually like, there's just so much more to it. I feel like it would take 3 hours to tell the whole story, but that's the gist of it. It explained a lot of things that are going on in my own life right now. Relationships with people in my life, what my purpose is, what some of my interests have been lately, what things I'm being drawn to like take note of in the world, what parts of history I'm being shown to take note of. It just kind of like, and ultimately, I think that also helped contribute to healing the Tena versicolor, because we did healing at the end of that life. That life ended very traumatically. I was killed by my own father, and just healing my body in that life helped, I think, to heal this rash.
Yeah, because you, as your higher self, went back and then was able to heal that body as it was, lying there, and while healing the body, also like retrieve that piece of your soul that you left behind there.
Yeah. And it's not, I think what's amazing about the fact that this rash went away too is that it doesn't have to be such a big deal, a long drawn out thing. It's sometimes just acknowledgement. It's like our bodies that have been holding on to this shit. Like in this life, I came in with this, and then there are likely things that have happened in this life that help reinforce that distortion. Just acknowledging it, like literally dredging it up to be looked at, and being like, okay, I see you. I see what happened. And then, I mean, the actual healing part we did on that was like maybe 5 minutes.
Mhm.
It's more just acknowledging, loving your body, forgiving yourself, forgiving your body in that moment, just being like, oh, I see why you suffered. I see. And it's just,
Exactly.
and the physical results kind of speak for themselves,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
there anything else, Tina, that you were wanting me to share about that life? Was there anything in particular that I might have missed?
No, I think you did a really good job of summarizing and hitting on all the important points.
Yeah, it was really fascinating to hear you. Like, I mean, just going through it because I could see what you were seeing, you know? So just like having you tell your story and just watching it unfold. And it's really like for me, I get the good part too, because I'm just like laying down and I'm like
Yeah.
seeing it,
Yeah.
being there with you and just watching it. It's just like, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really amazing too how in that state, because you're a detached observer,
Mm-hmm.
when you were able to recognize that someone that you're experiencing in that life
Mm-hmm.
is also in your life now.
Mm,
Yeah.
For me, this is the way that it is rolling out for me, is I can see the sort of karmic trap
yeah.
roles that we're still playing out. And I have so much more compassion for both of us. If it's somebody who's hurt me or who,
Right.
our relationship hasn't been good in this life, I'm able to have so much compassion for what our souls have been through to meet each other again in this life and try to work things out. And it's almost like just this, I can just like let it go,
Right.
Yeah.
because there
Yeah.
were a few people in that life whom, yeah, there's been just some really just, it's never been positive necessarily with this individual. And I could never really understand why. And now I'm like, oh, I get it. It was just that energy carried over into this life. I can release it, which I feel like also can maybe offer them some relief too, just
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
those little cords that really aren't
Yeah.
meant to be there are then dissolved,
Cut. Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. That's a really important point to make. And again, your session really solidified with me, like this cycle we've been in, of
Mm-hmm.
repeating the same things over and over and over and over again. The same people always playing the bad guy, like that's what we keep repeating over and over again. And it really solidified with me like the way the inverted matrix works, and that yes, like originally as souls, like these people played the bad guys for your good because you wanted to learn a lesson. But then when we leave the body again, we forget or maybe even get tricked into coming back in and doing the same thing over and over and over again, when
Yeah.
originally like our intentions were good. It's like it's just being
It's just
played
to
on.
re-traumatize you.
It's
Yeah.
right. It's re-traumatizing, because what I've noticed is that all of our clients are usually always like the victims in these lives, and then there's like the bad guys who are still the bad guys in their current life. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
understanding this allows us to break free from that finally,
Mm-hmm.
and leave this life and go on to do something different than repeating the same things over and over. So I think that's
Yeah.
really important. And understanding, yeah, of course, like understanding the connection with these souls. So we ended that lifetime seeing again that scene, where you were both bloodied, and how and why that played out the way it did, and came to an understanding of what happened there, and the different players that are still in your life now, and how that's all affecting you, not in as traumatic of a way per se, but still there's some of that energy that's still kind of playing out. So being able, like you said, just to have it acknowledged allows us to release that, have more compassion for this other person and the role they're playing, in your life. And also like all of what you've learned from them and how they've helped you to as a soul to become this empowered warrior woman, like and finally able to really break free from all of it and really be a sovereign being, like maybe for the first time on this planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is really incredible.
It absolutely is. And I felt that, I've been recording since our session, things that come up, whether it's dreams or I've been taking notes, nerding out on it.
I love it.
I've really felt that profoundly in this particular life, especially because it came through in so much detail, so vivid, like watching a movie.
Yeah.
And then all these words that then I was able to do further research on and all this stuff. And that really, truly looking at one of the people that was in this life with me and our dynamic now, and being able to really even forgive myself for what I've thought I needed out of it, and forgive them simultaneously. Forgive isn't even the word. It's just like this sweet, like letting go of all the like everything that I think I've needed to resolve or whatever. And then also being like, oh, and I get why you are the way you are with me,
Yeah.
so I
That's
feel
huge.
tangled with a lot of that.
Yeah.
And
That's
more
huge.
more people have been revealed to have been
in
life, that I'm just like, okay. And truly what you're talking about, and I know I'm not the only one that's picked up on this too, but that this karmic looping has become a trap. And again, it's an element of the fuckery where there is a physical element that was put around the earth to facilitate this trapping. And now that it's being dismantled, we can actually, stuck ancestors can ascend,
Freedom, like
they can actually evolve, get to where they want to go, and then there's more choice involved.
Yes.
There's choice if they want to come back and
like
like you said,
like true organic free will.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Organic free will, because up until now we think we have free will, but we don't. And that's what I learned from my first BQH. It wasn't BQH, it was a different modality, but hypnosis. It was learning about the trapping system.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot. It's in every aspect of life on this planet. Every aspect.
Yeah.
It's amazing because I almost think like for me personally, if all of this truth had been dumped on me at once, I don't know if I would have lived.
You probably would have filed it all away and just dissociated and been like, all right, bye. See ya.
I mean, I think that's what we do when we're kids too, is like, because we can sense more of the fuckery as kids sometimes. And you're just like, for me, I'm just like, I'll just stay out of my body. I'll just be a little balloon floating above my body for my entire life until I'm forced back to look at it. But it's this like incremental unraveling of all the layers of fuckery, which continue, but they don't traumatize me anymore. I go, oh,
yeah.
I'm also like, you know what? The fuckery runs deep, but also the time of that is done. It's done. Sorry, the jig is up. Like, you know what I mean? Yes, it's gonna be a little rocky as
you got me.
Travels, but also you're like, I see you.
Yeah.
I see you. It's like when somebody hides behind a door to scare you.
Yeah.
And it's like, first you're like, and then when you're like, I know you're hiding behind the door, just come out. Like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
That's how it feels. And not to downplay any of the horrendous things that are happening on the earth right now, but also I feel like the more we can become aware of it and go, oh, and that's fuckery, and that's fuckery, trickery, deception, fuckery, and just like
call it out,
and not get so worked up that we're actually feeding it then either, but to just like recognize it, choose something different.
Absolutely.
Next.
Yeah. I know. I love that. That's so, that's the empowering part. It's being able to just call it out, see it, say it, get it out of the way, because there's so many people that are so scared to even say it.
Yeah.
Like
And there's also
you
power.
are of the light. Yeah, it's just like, which side are you choosing to be from? Speak from the light, or speak out of fear, which is also leaving you vulnerable. Giving them more power by not say their name. Just say it. And just get it over with, because you are speaking of the light and love, to just kill it off completely, normalizing it, because this is actually, unfortunately, this is the world we live in. It's the inversion. We are surrounded by all the dark stuff coming around, but yeah, just like you said, okay, you're not scary, come out from behind the door now, I see you. And then your big voice comes out and speaking in tongues or whatever. It's just,
it takes a lot to get to that point too, because as you start to realize all the layers of the dark, it can be overwhelming. I've gone through phases of extreme outrage where I'm just like, now I'm to the point where, and there's definitely, I know it's also become trendy to say love and light doesn't work, love and light, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you know what I'm saying? How there's like a hate campaign against love and light. And I totally get where that's coming from, because that ignores
it's too
It's
extreme.
polarized. It's
too
like
extreme.
love and light and anti-love and light. Again, there's no balance, like we're
Right.
trying to bridge that balance.
Yeah, and it's like the love and light and the shit and shade, and you have to be able to recognize they all exist. So the love and the light is powerful, because as you guys know in your work, it's actually the love and the light that clears and heals and emanates out and actually shifts things. But you can't do it if you're ignoring the shit and shade.
Precisely.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You actually have to know
shit and shade. I love all your words. I'm using fuckery now. Like, I love that. It's so perfect. It's just like perfectly describes everything is fuckery. I love it.
Right.
Shit and shade.
I have to keep a
Hashtag.
Hashtag.
Hashtag fuckery.
Shit and shade.
Hashtag smells like fuckery.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. Like, it does take time to get to the point where you can just call it out and not have that emotional reaction to it. And then, sometimes you might find you get more enraged than other times. It kind of wears on you sometimes, and you're just like, but
Whenever something new gets thrown at us, I have varying degrees of reaction to it. Sometimes I'm just like, fuckery, add that to the list. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Whether it's anger or fear or just like,
fuck off.
this, like, enslavement that has happened, and that we're not unbound. Our chains are not unbound yet. They are, and they're not, and so I definitely have like my levels of reaction to it. And so then I work on it though. I work on it, and I'm not working on not feeling it, and I'm not working on denying it, but I'm doing the work to be like, just get back to the truth of the matter, which always ends up being right here and what it is, and nothing else can really actually fuck with this.
Right.
But I'll let myself have my crying snot fests, or go to, kickboxing class and freak
Beat
out
the
on
shit out of it.
Yeah, or like rant and rave. I mean, it's not all like, I don't have all healthy expressions for sure, but I recognize it and go, oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, that's it. It's just being true and authentic to what it is in that moment, whether it's snot or beat it up or just be like, it's all of it is true to you in that time and moment. But yeah, I find, yes, you're absolutely right. We do have to get into a point where we have to, build our way into being more courageous, into facing it, because we're not taught to. But then it's like, it comes to a point where you have to be like, okay, let me just try it out and put my light there and see what happens bravely. And if I don't like it, I'll turn away right now. But it's just keep pushing through. Like, I feel like this is where we need to be as the warriors. It's pushing through it as much as you can, because then you realize that you are so much more and stronger. And this is why I want to keep teaching people, like, because for me, absolutely, I always use this example. The first demon I ever saw, I got fucking scared. Okay. Like, look, I got a little, like, really terrified. And I had to tell Tina to pause the recording. I'd be like, okay, I can't, because it started to psychic attack me. It showed me my children in my mind. It showed me all this stuff that, you know, my vulnerable points. But then it came to that choice. Do I continue to press pause on this recording, or am I going to forge my way through? Because this is actually for a real client now. I can't just say like, okay, I quit. I'm just kidding. I'm not strong. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a level 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted a little level 1 and a couple of like little bugs, you know? No, it was a real hardcore demon, you know? So it was just, okay, I have to make a choice now. And it's the same. This is where we're being called now, where we have to stand up and be like, okay, we've had enough practice. We've done a lot of work. How much work can we do that we can actually face that? Not our own shadows and traumas, but what's causing the traumas? Like, what's pushing the traumas? Those beings,
Wow.
you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it took some time. I get it. I do get it. It's just because it's like such an urgency, I feel, you know, and I feel like you are like, just like totally pump us up in it, because it's like we just want all our clients, like I tap for that, you know, like manifesting clients exactly like you, where we can just like, okay, let's go. We're the bridge, like come walk on our backs and like cross over, please, because we need you now to fight for our world now. We need to push it forward. So,
Mm.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's you're just like, that's why I think I was just really excited when we got your RSR and I just saw you screaming, like warrior screaming, and I was like, we need more of this. Like
Yes.
her, we need her.
Yeah, totally.
She's who we need. Fuck. Like,
And you do make a good point, and I've had to really contemplate this in my own work, which is actually why I took a very long break.
Mm.
I'm still on break for a little bit while longer from taking on a lot of clients myself. Is this, I started to observe that people who are willing to do their own work, you accomplish actually so much more happens in a session
Mm. Mhm.
mhm.
than somebody who's just looking for a solution, which is no different than like going and getting prescription, right? Like you can do the same thing with energy healing. Like I'm going to take this, you make this go away, and I'm going to continue on with all my same behaviors and actions, and
And
right.
yeah.
So for a while, I'm like, oh man, even like in sitting in ceremony with people, I could see where in a group of 25 people, the people who had been doing a lot of their own internal work actually had something to contribute to the whole, to like a bigger thing for everybody, for the earth. Whereas the people who were still wrapped up, and no judgment on where everybody was at, I was just literally observing the effectiveness of people coming together in ritual,
Mhm.
and where everybody had done certain level of their own work, they had so much more to contribute to the whole, and all stages of it are important. But I feel like the more people are willing to start taking responsibility, because it's like maybe people have had energy healing and they're like, well, I mean, I didn't really feel anything. That could be partially because you're not holding your own weight either.
Mhm.
Because I noticed that with my own clients, the more they were doing their own work, the more they would get out of their sessions with me.
Yeah.
So it just seems like, and at the same
Yeah.
time, when you're just starting out, I think there might be practitioners that are really helpful for people who, because sometimes for some people, sessions like someone who's completely clueless about all of this, but they happen to find you, be led to you guys, and have a BQH, that could be their awakening moment. You know what I mean? Where they're just like, you know, maybe they have some chronic illness, and then their mind are like, I don't really believe in this, and I don't know, and I just saw a past life, but I just made it up. And the chronic illness is healed, and all of a sudden they can no longer deny what's right in front of them, and then that sets them on their path.
Yeah.
But it does, you know, so I think all of it is important. All levels of important. And this level where you can take enough responsibility to be able to collaborate with others to really build this mycelium that's like supporting all of life,
Mhm.
not just supporting humans, it's supporting life.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, I love that.
That's like an important point that we're at too,
Yeah.
Yes.
In support of life, because there is so much on this planet that is anti-life.
Yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's where I'm at with it too, just being the sort of detached observer, even with, I think I told you guys before, like some of my guides, I'm getting to the point where it's no longer a question with my mind, is it good and evil, or whatever. It's feeling with my body, is it life or anti-life? And that's it.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be personal, and I don't have to go like, you evil, nah. It's like, nope, you're anti-life. Sorry. Your life,
Bye. Yeah.
it's just like a sorting.
Yeah. Easy.
And that can be on the subtlest level, like a text can come through, and I'm like it's not life. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
That's what you text back. You're like, that's not life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is where that discernment can be so key for all the big global things that come up.
Mm-hmm.
Social justice causes, things where you think you're fighting for something that intellectually, cognitively makes sense. Like, yes, I want to support this cause for rights for these people. But if you feel the frequency, what's driving it is anti-life. It's that trickery, that deception.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So just for example, you were talking about you mentioned this, like the black cube of Saturn thing. And, I'm not saying I have an opinion about this right or wrong, but I've heard people say that like, oh yeah, remember on Instagram and Facebook when everybody was for Black Lives Matter, they're all promoting doing a black square.
Yep.
Are you really standing for human rights? Consciously, maybe, but are you subconsciously being tricked into an anti-life narrative at the same time?
That's another contract.
Another contract. And that's just maybe
a baby example. Like, yeah.
Yeah. That's a contract.
Exactly that.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. And you can't feel those subtle frequency discernments in your body if you're all clogged up with your own trauma.
Right, exactly. That's why people are like a little blocked. There's blocks there that we have to kind of work through.
Still trying to figure things out with their heads, like even personal medical decisions that are being pushed.
Yeah, definitely. Oh God, so many.
Figure it out with your head, but if you can't feel in your body that something coming up might be being pushed as beneficial, but it actually feels anti-life. You know what I mean? So that's another reason right now in particular, not only does your own personal life improve, like now I'm rash free. That's but on the larger scale, you're like, collectively, we start to move in a different direction if everybody's able to just sort life into life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's just easy for them to get because they are getting them through the emotional manipulation. So they are triggering a trauma response in them to be like, oh, I need to go do that because that's what they're being called to do, through that emotional manipulation. So they are getting them on the surface level of that trauma, their trauma rather. And that's how, and they can't sift through it because they got them right there. Whatever's on the surface ready to hook in.
Access point. Yeah. Like you talk about, it's an access point, that trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love
and
that.
What I'm talking about too is that that's science. So a lot of the topics that we just brought up in this talk and that you bring up in some of your other videos, they may seem way out there to some people that don't talk this way, but what you just brought up, Karen, is science, where it is proven that if you are in a heightened emotional state, your cognitive function declines. You can't have all that energy going to both places at once, processing emotion and logical thinking. Right. So that is actually measurable. So if people are able to recognize where that occurs in their just day-to-day lives, then they can see on a larger scale while you're being manipulated. Why, okay, if all these sources of information, media sources, are trying to appeal to my emotions and make me emotional, they are purposefully trying to take away logical
sway.
So that you're controllable. Like that's just that's not out there shamanic, whatever. That's like basic human psychology and biology that is measurable. It's science.
Yes.
Yes, and people need that science and yeah, and like your physical proof of your healing. Like people need that. They look for that. But again, like once you have that filter over that fear, or they're gone. Like you lost them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can't discern when they're in
No.
fear. People can't discern
Yeah,
when
or
they're in fear.
emotionally manipulated. No, they're gone.
Yeah. And this is why we always talk about it comes back to each and every one of us doing the healing work so we can clear that trauma, we can clear these blocks. Because the more, I think the main result of clearing and healing the trauma and the blocks that we have within us is sharpening of discernment, is being able to feel through these things. And I mean, you literally, truth is a feeling. You can feel
Yeah.
when it's true, when you have cleared enough of your lifetime trauma. Like you can really feel whether it's life or anti-life, you
Yeah.
know? And I just did like a webinar with quantum healers about, like, we were talking about the bifurcation. We were talking about the split that's happening now between everything, you know, masks and anti-masks, vax and anti-vax, everything. The polarity is growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. They're just splitting
And
everything that they can. All of
right,
it.
right, divide and conquer, right? And it's
Mhm.
like really what it comes down to is it's like life or anti-life, you know? That's
Yeah.
the
Pretty much
basis
the
of
big two
everything.
categories. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the basis of everything. And the more we can heal and clear the junk that we're carrying, the clearer our vessel becomes, and the more we're able to discern so that we're not tricked and manipulated anymore. I mean, and then
Yeah.
we really truly become sovereign when your mind is not able to be controlled anymore, is when you truly become sovereign.
Yeah. See right through it.
And it constantly butts up against what your mind thinks and what you want to believe,
Mm.
which is where
Yeah.
I think like I've even heard and witnessed a lot of spiritual people, energy workers, people who are super tapped into things,
Mm-hmm.
uh, touting anti-life frequencies, not
Yeah.
recognizing trickery. And I'm not saying I don't ever fall for the trickery either. That's why it's like a constant
Yeah.
checking in with yourself.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I will hear spiritual people really spouting off things that I'm like, that actually makes sense, but it feels like anti-life underneath it. So what are
Yeah.
you coding? And it's subtle. And
Yeah.
So
that's
subtle.
like the more you clear off the bigger things you've been carrying around your whole life, you start to get into the really subtle stuff where you can also recognize your own bullshit
Yeah.
faster. I
Absolutely.
Yeah.
had a recognizing my own bullshit thing today. It also makes you less afraid to see your own bullshit, but
Mm-hmm.
because you learn how to be more of a detached observer. Where I caught in my mind, I was thinking this other person, I'm like, yeah, this other person I'm talking to, they just really don't speak directly. They speak in riddles. My reply to them via text is exactly that. And it took me like 10 minutes, and I'm like, I just did what I'm judging them for.
Yeah, you did the word salad thing.
I did the word salad thing in response. And then I had to look at, okay, I do that sometimes. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, so that's like a minor example, but it's still important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like,
absolutely.
you
All
know,
of it
we
is. They're all little
got to,
pieces of yourself, right? That you're trying to just be like, whoa, I do that.
and
Totally
how
do
can
that.
you ever expect to really be able to discern larger scale trickery, fuckery, if you can't discern your own first?
Yes.
Word.
Even those
Yeah.
little seemingly minor things. And I didn't beat myself up about it. I just went, up, noted. I'm going to try another way to
You're
communicate in
like
this.
select all and delete.
I didn't sit there and go like, Amanda, you're such a piece of shit. And you shouldn't, I was just like, okay, I see that I do this. Alrighty, let me and make another choice the next time I communicate, even if it's a little scary because I'm used to being around the bush or being passive aggressive, like.
Mm. I love that. I love that. we have to be honest with ourselves, and you know,
Exactly.
that's what it comes down to. It comes down to honesty and authenticity and being real, right? Honesty, authenticity, and being real. The more we can do that with ourselves and with each other, the more progress we'll make.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And you even, like, I was just thinking back to your session again, and you were even touching on some like bigger world issues, like from like your session, you know, it had bigger implications than just that life and just for you, but like it fed in, it was like bleeding into like what's happening now in the world.
Yeah. Collectively.
And
Yeah.
I felt that when when I quote unquote healed to a point where I could start to look beyond my own just survival mode, I started to realize that it's not that you're doing things for yourself or for the collective. Because it's like, if you're only doing it for yourself, that's kind of selfish, right? Or if you're only doing it for the collective, that's kind of martyrdom
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But it's not either or, it's both.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
Mhm.
that has been so key to me, even in recognizing these bigger themes going on. It's like it's happening in me, it's happening out there. If I'm healing it in here, I'm contributing out there. If I'm recognizing it out there, I'm recognizing in here. And it doesn't have to be separate, you know, it's
No.
like
Yeah.
it's beautiful in that way.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I just love talking to you, Amanda. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
everything just clicks. I just love it.
I think it too. I
Yeah.
feel like we go, all three of us are just like
Yeah, just feeding off of each other's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
got my network to just
Yeah. Yeah.
go.
I also love too, like how like one session, one BQH session can cover so much, like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
so much, like all of your questions, well, most of your questions were answered, and you're still putting pieces together and realizing things, like the healing continues
Keeps
afterwards,
going, yeah.
keeps going,
Yeah,
and
because it's like integrating and coming in and more info and healing and integrating, making more space, more information. It's just like always going.
yeah, on a personal level and on the collective level too, like information is even has been coming to me, like regarding your session and like what was happening there.
Yeah.
It's just so amazing to me how it all works, you know, like it's
Yeah.
incredible.
Really amazed by it too. How and even like we have that session and then I find out I think a few days later is when things erupt in between Israel and Palestine in that part of the world,
Right.
and how a lot of these things are all tying in, and I'm like, that's not a coincidence. That is
Mm-mm.
because we were sort of in my session being shown kind of the origin point of those energies in that part of the world,
Yeah,
or when they
Right.
really started to gain a foothold. They
right.
were there before, but this is when it started to shift to where they were becoming like the dominant force.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now they've been shadow. Now it's being brought back up again. This is not a coincidence at
Absolutely.
all.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. I just love how it works. Like, I mean, yeah, so much can be covered in a quantum healing session. Like,
Yeah.
it's really amazing. And I'm just so thrilled that your rash is going away. Like, that's just the best part.
Thank you.
It's
And for
just
Yeah.
the
me,
best.
part of it is like I could live with this rash. It's not horribly harmful. It is a little unattractive, but like it's fine. It's more to me that this actually has shown me that everything that I have understood about energy work
Yeah.
actually
Exactly.
like a tangible thing. So
Yes.
it's like the most basic self-healing types of things that we're capable of are just the tip of the iceberg for like the infinite human potential that can come out of it. So it's almost like we need proof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
to fuel that. It
Yes,
fuels
this
that
little
feeling.
proof, this little physical manifestation of energy work just solidifies.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask for this proof back in 2015 when I started doing energy work. I wasn't like, you know what, God, show me proof that it works. You know, and I've seen all kinds of amazing things over the years, but this is the first big physical thing for me.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I think too, because things are accelerating,
Yeah.
it's like the turnover. We could have had the same session a year ago and it might have taken a month for the rash to clear. This took like 7 days.
Right.
So
Right.
it's accelerated now anyway, but it's like, I've known energy work works because my life has been on a steady uphill improvement, more ease, more joy, more peace, all of that for years. But sometimes the work that I do here, it takes 6 months before I'm like, oh, that's because of this. This was just so simple, tangible, and fast
Yeah.
that I didn't
Absolutely.
need to do it. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I did.
You need that extra fuel, that extra push, like again, another push to be like, yeah, see what you can do. But
See
I
what
feel
you
like
can do,
also
yeah.
with the three of us and being able to work on ourselves continuously, I feel that too plays a role in how much we can kind of push with the progress too, you know, because if maybe like I wasn't healed, you know, or I didn't do the work as much and I was kind of like the dead weight of the group, maybe it wouldn't have been able to progress faster either, you know?
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
could be something there. I'm feeling that we are more open vessels that are able to allow the light to come in. We're kind of in a way fearless, and that way we could forge through, push, and then let the work be done. We trust that the work is going to get done.
Yeah. And it's just effective. And it's so
Yeah.
funny how, even though we're all in this altered state when we're in a BQH session, probably me most of all, or maybe you too, Karen, but still, we just kind of seamlessly did the teamwork thing and there's no questioning.
Mm-mm.
But a lot of it, my source self was sort of leading, but I also knew to be like, okay, Karen, can you work on this? And can we all work this together? And then Tina's seeing what she does. And it just felt like we didn't even have to effort at it. It just felt like we were all
Yeah.
able to click in. Maybe we have our specialties, but they just kind of like
Yeah.
work together beautifully.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I definitely know from experience that you're attracted to certain practitioners for certain reasons, you know, based on whatever you need. And it's like this, it's just like this divine matchup that happens. You know,
Yeah.
it really is. It's like our higher selves planned it all out. Yeah.
I love it. And I love that I've gotten to the point where, because I haven't really worked with too many other practitioners since I started doing energy work, because I think part of it was also teaching me to be self-sufficient for a long time.
Mhm.
But I have run the whole gamut of working with other healers and practitioners and seers and psychics and all that, where some of them are for me to learn the hard way. Some of them
Yeah.
have been, like a few years ago, like for me to learn what is bullshit, or I don't need that, I already knew that, or getting weirdly attacked afterward. You know what I mean? So there's like the hard lessons. Then there's been the not just healers and stuff, but even teachers, like classes I've taken where I have paid a good chunk of money to sit there and realize I'm already doing this.
Right.
But actually to get the lesson that way. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm trying to just say out to, you know, I'm just proclaiming, I no longer need to learn things the hard way. So now I'm attracting practitioners when I want to collaborate, like you guys, where it actually feels loving, it's effective, it's easy, it flows. You guys feel like old friends. And where we're all kind of like excited about it, and actually a lot gets moved and a lot gets done, not just for me as the client, but it does seem like these bigger collective energies that have been kind of formulating around it. So I love that I'm now at this point.
Yeah, I totally Yeah, I totally hear that. We've been through the same thing, like
Mhm.
having to. We haven't worked with a lot of other healers either, but there have been those ones where they're like, that's a lesson, right? Don't do that again. Or you take that class and you're like, I already know all of this. And you knew that before you signed up for it. So, yeah, I mean, all of these things are just teaching us, right? Until we become radically self-reliant and sovereign, and then realize, okay, I'm only going to attract in I only want to learn the easy way. I don't need to learn the hard way anymore, like you put it. Like, I'm going to learn the easy way now, and I'm going to attract people into my life that are ready and also want to learn the easy way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so much more effective.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
effective.
And I think one of the greatest, like the best example for me about this was I learned energy work with horses first. So I've been working with them for a couple years. Then I knew I wanted to work with people. And I'm like, I need to be certified in something or people won't come to me.
Yeah.
So I found Reiki. I didn't know anything about Reiki, but I'm like, that sounds legit. Okay, I'll get certified in that. And I it was like $1,700 to get certified as a level 3 master Reiki person. And I'm sitting there in the class and I have the least experience out of everyone. And I'm like, okay, teachers. And when we actually get down to it, I'm like, the horses taught me this. I've been doing this for 2 years already. But not only that, but my teachers ended up having really strong connections with John of God, who is like another embodiment of Satan.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Okay.
so it
And you were
ended up
getting
being,
attuned by then?
yeah. Don't worry, none of their symbols actually took, so it's fine.
Oh, good.
Good, good,
It was
good.
all good. But again, it was one of those things where like and that's just where I was at in my journey. But that's like such a blatant example. I didn't have to go through the whole thing to realize. It was like within the first 10 minutes of doing the actual Reiki part. Like, oh yeah, the horses taught me this. Like they themselves, not even my teachers who were facilitating the horse work, the actual horses taught me how to
Mhm.
do it.
Right.
So I'm like,
Mhm.
And weren't you also saying, like, when we first met, you were talking about kind of not knowing what direction to go in with your healing work, or like you felt like you needed to be certified in something?
I mean, I've gone through several of those phases. And I think part of that for me is because I have been drawn in so many,
Right.
in a way, I've been drawn to learning it all
Mm-hmm.
aspects, mediumship but not even in formal ways. It's just like, if I'm interested in something, then I have something to gain from it. So at times have felt like, what am I even doing?
Yeah.
Because it feels kind of restrictive for me to specialize in one thing.
Right.
Um, so, and sometimes that's actually prevented me from like growing my clientele and things like that. Like, I
Mhm.
actually just recently unpublished my website because I didn't want to take more clients, because I'm like, well, do I want to specialize in clearing them or helping with new circuitry or divining for them? Or, I just kind of was like,
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's the human in us that like needs to feel like we need to like narrow it down and specialize in like one specific thing. But I think the beauty of you is that you have all of these skills that you
You
can
have
use.
tons. Yeah.
Like you have so many skills to use, and maybe you could offer all of those different things, and they can choose what they want, you know?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna see how it goes. Because once in a great while too, I get drawn to working with animals again.
Mm.
Because
Mhm.
You could
they're
do
also
that
going,
too.
Yeah.
yeah.
You
So
Do
can
it
add
all,
all.
man.
You can add it all.
You
I
can
actually
do
feel
it
like
all.
I've backed off from needing to have a solid answer, and I can feel like it's actually starting to kind of formulate what the next phase of my offerings for other people will be, or animals, or both.
Mm.
Because I'm also really drawn to doing like ley line work, like greater land work, but in collaboration with groups of people who
Mm.
are at a certain level where they can contribute to the whole.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
just kind of, and I think this road trip that I'm going on is part of it's going to be that it's kind of maybe distilling some of this down a
Mm.
little bit.
Yeah.
So We'll see.
And you're going to use the anointing oil, right? To
Yep.
claim back the land.
I love that. I'm gonna be like, I know.
She's just gonna bring like a bottle of olive oil.
Yes.
Douse your tires.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring a little bit with you, put the couple drops on the land wherever you are and claim it.
Yeah. I'm excited to do that.
Yeah.
We're excited for you, and we'll invite you back. We'll have you back in, let's say, a month or something, and just see what else has come from it.
And
We want to hear about your adventures.
Well, and maybe before then, I might end up having just like a more SSP specific BQH session with you guys too, because, and some of that honestly is more out of curiosity. I mean, some of this stuff that I'm undertaking too is not because I feel like I need to be healed and my healing is never ending. It's more like it does bring me joy and I nerd out on it and I get to understand all these things from my whole life. And so to me, that one could be really cool too.
Yeah.
That is going to be a cool one because we've been like really curious about that. Even for myself, because like I feel like there's so much unknowns in my own puzzle of that. So yeah, I think it would be
they blank slate
great.
So
yeah, I mean, just to understand a little more what's going on. Like, are these things that are actually happening to me, or am I gaining information for others? Am I getting insights, or just to better understand you as that, or let's say, so I don't know. Like, I'm just really open to the whole thing just to see what that really means. But because it's your story or like your experience, I don't know. I think it could very well be that I'm picking up pieces for you, for example. Just
there might be more, Karen, but also, yes, I see what you're saying.
Karen wants it to be that she's picking up on everybody else.
I know.
But I don't know, like I'm very open to it. It could be, like I really don't know. I just don't know.
The same way with you. It's like so I've been having these more, I've been more conscious of these SSP type experience. I was having them for longer, reading through my journals from the last 5 years. I'm like, oh my God, this has been going on. Only in the last year and a half have I started to categorize them as that. Then led to further recall type stuffs, but I still hold the possibility that none of it's really true. Yet there's still more mounting evidence and experiences that kind of are like, no, I didn't hear that from someone else. Why but I'm also still like, I don't lock myself into anything either that's like, oh, this absolutely happened to you and this is your story. And then I'm just kind of staying open to it and also keep observing all of this stuff. But I have found too that sometimes working with other people who were having experiences that could have been SSP related as children, sometimes just being around each other, meeting and talking can help activate recall, which then helps you ultimately heal from a lot of those traumas, regain all those things, so you're not being used against your will.
Yeah, absolutely.
In other states.
It's like another level of sovereignty. There's so many levels of it. So just reclaiming. But I feel like you got a really big piece now and you've cleared so much that this curiosity piece is really like, I think you're ready
it's
for
like
it eventually,
bonus material.
Easter eggs. This is the Easter egg material.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I just could talk to you all day, Amanda. I really love talking to you. We've been over 2 hours now.
Wow. Yeah, we have a lot to roll.
I know. It's really good to it's good to have you and for you to share your piece of your life. And it feels like just such a small chunk, but it's humongous.
Right. A big piece.
It covers so much, even for ourselves too. Just like us, like just me seeing us on the screen, it's just like 3 little pieces of that puzzle together, interacting and sharing. And we'll have you on again. It's really nice to connect and to, yeah, just like hearing you talk. It's just so refreshing, and it really gives us more like incentive and purpose to continue with the work that we're doing. And I feel like by having you, it's showing us the potential of what there are, you know, what other people are out there that are ready to face their fuckery.
Face your fuckery. We need that on a t-shirt.
Yes.
Face your fuckery.
Yes. So I know, I mean, this isn't, I know I didn't come on to be like an advertisement, but absolutely. If anybody's still watching after this 2 hours, I highly recommend working with Tina and Karen, like whatever stage you're at, because you both are very, I find you to be very loving and compassionate and very effective facilitators for this kind of work, whatever phase. If somebody's maybe just new to energy work, I think your gentle approach would be appropriate for them. If they're like me and they want to go full court press, you know, like I've experienced you as being very supportive in that way. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. We love and we appreciate you so much. And it's nice to have you, to reunite with you, you know, like finding our family again, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Cause it does feel, it's such a natural connection, you know, and you don't find that often. At least we don't find that often. You know, there's only like those few people that you really can connect with in that way, where you're really on the same level, you know, and like really on the same level. So we really,
I feel that too. I don't feel like there's any aspect of my weirdness that I have to hold back from you.
Because we're just as weird.
Yeah.
Compartmentalize, like, okay, these are my Sasquatch people, and these are my SSP people, and these are my science people. I'm like, with you guys, I can go
all the way through.
All of it. So we've done this before. This is not new.
Yeah, we've been Sasquatches too.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Amanda, you took down your website. Is there any way people can find you?
I mean, if someone
She's like, no, please don't find me.
Like, I've deleted my Instagram. If anybody does want to get in touch, you can email me at trackermedicine22@gmail.com. Because I am taking clients here and there by word of mouth if it feels right. I'm just not like advertising right now as I'm going through all these cool shifts myself. But if people do want to even just correspond, if they have something that they're like, what you just said, I went through, or I knew you in that life in Jerusalem, totally fine. You can email me. You know what I mean? That I'm open to that. So for now, till I resurrect my website, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what we didn't talk about. The whole your name in that life. Did you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the first name that came through was, what was it? Yamina or Yamina? No. It was like that.
No, that's not it.
No, that's my friend's name.
Yeah.
Yamira? No.
Really close to that. Amani? Was it?
Yamani.
Okay, so the first name that came out, I said the word Yamani. And then my brain always fights the information that's coming through. It's a constant struggle, right? The brain's like, what the fuck is that? So then Tina said, okay, now you will very clearly hear what the name is. And I corrected and I say Amani. So then when I go back to do research on these words that came through, so this is after the session, I'm back in my normal state. It's like later that day or the next day. I find that Amani and Yamani are both Arabic words, but that Yamani is actually part of a prophecy, which I believe is a prophecy through Islam, I believe. But please, if you are Muslim, I do not know anything about it. This is just what I found on Google. That a prophecy that a savior, I guess they called this person like a savior, would come, one of 12 saviors perhaps, before the big boss savior comes.
Mm.
And this particular savior was named Yamani and was supposed to bring about like knowledge or like the right path, like to just bring people back onto
The
the right,
way, right?
the
Like
way.
the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just an interesting, it was just interesting. to just
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that. And so what was the other name? It was Amani. Amani. What did that mean?
Amani, which I believe like in modern days, that would be interpreted as a male name.
Mm.
Amani, and it was something like desires, or it felt like a loving and like a,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
it was a positive name.
Yeah.
But also I had a name for my nanny. I mean, nanny's not really the word, but another female caregiver who worked in my household in that life.
Right.
I was calling her Nadi, Nadi, which also is Arabic in origin, also mostly applied. Okay, that's my dog snoring in the back. It also typically given to males, but it meant like crier, like crybaby, crier.
Mm-hmm.
But as the life is coming through, I'm like, we call her Nadi, but it's like a nickname. It's not really her name. It's like it's our like pet name for her.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I thought it was interesting too, how like the girl boy thing was inverted, because in that life, both of those names were girl names and now they're used for boy names. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And I wonder about that too, because I know that like, in Israel, a lot of names are unisex.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's not necessarily always delineation. This is a girl's name, this is a boy's name.
Mm.
And so I wonder with some of the older languages, if you go back, if names weren't necessarily gendered in that way, and we were tapping into that kind of thing, and now they've become gendered.
Oh yeah.
More, perhaps
Right,
like in
right,
modern
perhaps.
But if you go way back pre-Jesus times, like maybe they weren't gendered then.
Right. Yeah.
True.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to add that because I thought that was really interesting too. And you, in that lifetime, you did carry aspects of what you would think of as a savior, because you were taking a path that was probably never traveled before.
Yeah,
That's what it felt
That's
like.
what it felt like. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was tapping into frequencies that were ancient future. They were like a little too advanced for the exact time that they were happening. So they were seen as fascinating but scary, a threat, and I was ultimately killed for it too. Well, shunned and then killed for it.
Right.
So in that way,
Yeah. Yeah.
How typical. How dare they?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. We love you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody for watching. If you've made it this far, we love you too. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Trooper.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.